Okay, here we are for another interesting evening, and we're going to talk about the value of women in the decision-making process, in the home, in the workplace, in the community, and in leadership. Okay, so what we're going to do first, I'm going to introduce Jocelyne Desautels. She is our club president. Wave, Jocelyne, in case no one knows who you are. There's Jocelyne. And she is our club president, and she does a fantastic job, I have to tell you. She's going to read the land acknowledgement from the BPW Ontario Diversity and Inclusion Task Force.
Thank you, Nancy.
I get her to do it. I can't pronounce a lot of those words, so better she can do it.
Thank you. Although this is a virtual meeting, we normally hold our BPW meetings in person in many areas of Ontario. We acknowledge that we are meeting on traditional lands of Indigenous peoples from many communities across the lands we now call Ontario. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land, and we recognize and deeply appreciate their continuing contributions and historic importance. We are grateful for the opportunity to work with the Inuit, the First Nations, the Métis, and peoples who continue to live on these lands to create a safer and more abundant future for all women and girls. In accordance with our mission to develop the business, professional, and leadership potential of women and girls on all levels through advocacy, education, mentoring, networking, skill building, and economic empowerment programs and projects around the world, we commit to advocating for the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls' final reports, 231 calls to justice with the Ontario and federal governments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyne. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to give you a brief explanation about Business and Professional Women of Niagara Falls, BPW. We use it for a short term. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, BPW is an international organization that advocates for women locally, nationally, and internationally. And BPW Niagara Falls is the community level. We belong to the Ontario board and in turn to the Canada Federation, and then in turn to the International Federation. So we meet in Niagara Falls monthly on the fourth Wednesday evening. And we have members from all over the Niagara region, not just Niagara Falls. We have St. Catharines people, we have Port Colborne, Welland, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and Niagara Falls. So if you're so inclined, you're more than welcome to meet with us. Business and professional women in the Niagara Peninsula and beyond are invited to attend our meetings as a guest or as a speaker and to become a member. The Canadian Federation of the Business and Professional Women, BPW Canada, is non-sectarian, non-profit, and not partisan. BPW has a mandate to work towards improving the economy, political, and social and employment conditions for women. And that's what we do. So now that I've told you that, I'm going to introduce you to Anne Nicely. There she is. There she is. Anne is a former president, has been a long time member. We can never remember when she started, but she's a great member and she keeps us in line too. She is now acting as our secretary and will be taking notes during our discussion. Okay. So the next person is Charmaine Grace. Where's Charmaine? There she is. There's Charmaine. Charmaine's going to be our Mistress of Ceremonies, our MC. Charmaine is a member and also a past president of BPW Niagara Falls. She is a law of attraction coach. Law of attraction life coach, sorry, with your next step to possibility. She She coaches women to reignite their hope and believe in what is possible for them, empowering them to step into their possibilities. So that's exciting too. We have our panelists, and I haven't put them in alphabetical order. I haven't put them in any particular order, so it's okay. Chantal Fraser happens to be the first one on my list. Chantal, where is Chantal? I know she's here. Chantal, oh, there she is. Wave, Chantal. There she goes. There she is. All right. Through her company, Empowered Path Incorporated, that is incorporated, right? Yeah, okay, incorporated. Chantal Fraser acts as a thought partner to help people learn how to find or create their ideal jobs. Chantal also helps employers learn how to create a more inclusive workplace so that they can attract and retain a more diverse workforce. Lieutenant Colonel, retired. That's pretty darn impressive, Chantal. You're a Lieutenant Colonel. Oh my goodness. She holds an MBA from the Royal Military College of Canada and is a recipient of the Human Resources Professional Association, HRPA, Honourary Life Award. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. Okay, next person on my list is Deb Stambula. Deb, I've known for many years, and you saw her wave there. She's the blonde down there. After leaving an abusive marriage, Deb began her journey back to wholeness and her authentic self through the study of tantric yoga and reconnecting with the natural world. 6 years later, she finds herself living her best life on the shores of Lake Huron, helping others reconnect to themselves and their partners. She is an intimacy coach, and her business is called Love Flourishes. She works primarily with women and couples, specifically helping women to find their voice and claim their sexual sovereignty, and guiding men to vulnerability and deeper intimacy. This is the sex education that we never got in the books. Tantra, the art of conscious loving. Thank you, Deb. It's good to see you here. Julie Christensen. Where's Julie? There she is. Julie Christensen, MA, is a registered psychotherapist in private practice and the author of several books about anger, stress, bullying, and coping with crisis. She was voted top 40 under 40 and ranked 15th among the most influential forensic psychologists working today. Pretty impressive. I got such smart friends. Oh, I'm so lucky. Julie is an award-winning international public speaker and creator of the Anger Solutions method of anger resolution training tools. Known as the Anger Lady, she is the inspiration behind a scripted TV crime serial currently under development. That is impressive. Can I have your autograph, Julie? Last time I met with Julie, we went for lunch and we stole food off the robot waiter. Turned out it belonged to the people across the aisle. We didn't know, but we had fun. Marilyn Raphael, where's Marilyn? There's Marilyn, that beauty waving there. Okay. An accomplished leader, Marilyn Raphael has a passion for people and advancing public interest issues. She has over 15 years of experience working in the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors in Ontario, and is currently a vice president, business and product governance at TD Asset Management. Together with her husband, she is also co-founder of the Icon Talent Partners, a not-for-profit talent development organization for high potential BIPOC. I know that stands for something. What does that stand for?
Well, with some people, we say BIPOC, but it stands for Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color.
Oh, great. Thank you. Now we know. All right. Okay, a not-for-profit talent development organization for high potential BIPOC talent that is focused on closing the opportunity gap and diversifying leadership teams at some of Canada's largest companies. Welcome. Marlene McKinnon. Where did you go, Marlene? Here you are. Okay. Marlene McKinnon is a member of BPW Sault Ste. Marie for 30 years and is currently first VP of BPW Ontario. She started to learn parliamentary procedure in 4-H. Oh, that's great. And developed her passion for women's issues as a member of Women's Institute and now in BPW. Throughout the past, she has gained many skills and is now the Geographic Information Specialist, working with data and mapping, and Source Water Protection Program Manager for our local conservation authority. So you can see that we have a great group of accomplished, strong women, and this is who we need to hear from. So I will be your host today. I'll just say I'm a BPW Niagara Falls member for 24 years. I think it's going to be 25 in May. And I'm an illustrator and I do lots of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to introduce okay, observers. We have some observers here that are not on the panel. Would you please identify yourself and tell us who you are and if you're representing an organization or something that you want us to know. So Melanie, would you like to go first?
Oh no, but I don't know what to say about me. Hi, I am Jocelyne asked if I could join tonight. I knew Linda a little bit and have taken over as one of the admin on a People's Platform. We discussed briefly before everybody else arrived. Otherwise, I am a stay-at-home mom currently right now, and that's probably my biggest responsibility. I have a few other things I dabble my toes into, I guess, but biggest priority is my kids right now. So
great. Thank you, Melanie. Lori Lococo, would you like to introduce yourself and what you represent, if you do? Or
Thank
just
you,
yourself?
Nancy. My name is Lori Lococo. I'm a city councilor in Niagara Falls. I have attended some of your meetings before, and I thought this would be a great one to not participate, but to watch the panel. It's really important for women to have a seat at the table. I was involved in Toastmasters for 15 years and involved in the legal community and court office. So that's my background. And with the election coming up, the provincial and municipal election, I think it's important to have these discussions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Sharon Doran.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sharon. I am a BPW member from Barrie. I'm also on the Ontario board as vice president, and I recently wound up a 30-year career with Honda of Canada in the automotive industry, on the admin side, production, HR, a little bit of everything. I'm also the chair for the Ontario conference for BPW this year, and that's coming up very quickly. And a big focus for us in Barrie, and I think for most people, as Lori mentioned, is trying to get more women involved in politics at all levels, either as candidates or behind the scenes, etc. So we are hosting a Pints in Politics panel on the Friday evening. It's going to be a lot of fun and very informative, and also good timing because it'll literally be the day after the Ontario election. So that will be lots of things to talk about there, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Kathy Reed. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Catherine. I'm just checking things out, thinking of becoming a member. I'm the winemaker for Joseph's Estate Wines, and I'm also a very active volunteer with the Lions Club. So I do spend a lot of my spare time.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. I'm glad you were able to come. Sherry, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry. I am the personal assistant to Julie Christensen, and I thank you for having me be an observer and very interested in hearing the conversation tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you for coming. Shahina. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Hi, Nancy. Hi, esteemed panelists. My name is Shahina. I am a BPW member for North Toronto. I'm a passionate advocate for the interests of women and newcomers to Canada entering the Canadian work sphere. Through a trauma-informed approach, I work directly with job seekers to develop and facilitate a curriculum that sort of really empowers them and in order to sort of achieve economic stability. So my day job, I'm a facilitator. I work with employers and I advocate for women and newcomers to get into the Canadian labor market. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. Okay, we got everybody? Okay, I'm going to introduce now our mistress of ceremony, who is
Sorry, we have
Charmaine.
Alicia coming in, Nancy.
Pardon me?
Alicia is coming in, is joining us.
Oh, Alicia, okay. Should we just give her a second?
Yes, please.
Kathy, did you bring wine for everybody?
Sorry.
Alicia, would it be possible to unmute and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm just caught up with something. My name is Alicia and I'm actually joining with Marilyn. I just wanted to kind of join in and see what this panel will be about. I'm a strategic communications consultant with Earnscliffe Strategies, and I'm looking forward.
We lost her.
So Alicia is and I are getting acquainted, and Alicia may very well become my campaign manager. So yes. So she thought she'd come in, so it'd be nice to participate in this evening.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad that she's here. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to now hand it over to Charmaine Grace, and she's going to explain the purpose of our roundtable. Over to you, Jocelyne.
Jocelyne? How about to Jocelyne, Nancy, or to me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Charmaine. I'm looking at you and I'm saying Jocelyne. It's been a long day. Okay.
First off, thank you all for coming this evening. I'm honored to be in your presence, and I imagine we will learn an awful lot from each other. The original reason for doing this is to look at the value of women in the decision-making process. And we've provided headings for the home, the community, the workplace, and leadership. For generations, women collectively have, in one way or another, been led to believe that they have little or no value. I know that's changing. I can see it in the women here that are accepting their value and stepping into the value, and I congratulate each one of you for that. But let's say for the purpose of the roundtable for women is to learn our inimitable value, even though subtle messaging has suggested otherwise, especially generationally. The truth is women are in fact invaluable. Their value is immeasurable in all areas noted in the heading. And perhaps the more precise word should have been influence. Women have far more influence than they realize. And I think that that's what's exciting, is that our influence is beginning to be realized. This influence is often subtle. And it lies in the energy of our mothers, our wives, teachers, nurses, and that indefinable, Nancy's put in here, in their looks. You know, that indefinable look a mother has. Pardon,
Excuse me.
you just have to look, what was that you're saying, and it does have power in it. I don't know how much we really take it in, or a lot of us are afraid to take that look into important situations. Anyways, as mentioned earlier, the initial idea of the roundtable was for the context of women in politics and how women could be more encouraged to stand as candidates and be represented and supported. But it was considered important that women be reminded that politics is a confined definition, although it's so important. It's time for women to own their value and their strengths honestly and without having to feel defensive. And I think that's wonderful. So a little bit of research that I did into this is that as natural connectors, nurturers, each and every woman plays a role in keeping society together. And we hold many roles in the value of society, which make us indispensable over and above what we do in the workplace. And this means juggling all those balls: motherhood, sisterhood, parent, child, all of those things. So the first question that came up that Nancy presented was, women embody the essence of the community. So what is this essence? I looked it up, I'm sure you all did. It's the intrinsic nature or indispensable quality of something, especially something abstract, that determines its character. So when we're looking at women in the home, we'll start in the home, and I'm going to ask for a volunteer to start with this. But what is the essence that women embody? Deb, you know what? I had you down as the person I wanted to ask for this.
This is, first let me say this, what we're going to talk about tonight is a weekend seminar.
Yes, it is.
Essence is sort of the foundational cornerstone of the work that I do. I love your definition. So what I do is I take a lot of Eastern philosophies and I put them in Western languaging. Essence is one of those words that's very difficult for Western culture to understand because it kind of is abstract and esoteric. But basically, what essence is, from my perspective, is if you think about your body and your spinal column going right through it, in the middle of your spinal column is your essence. It's who you know you are, regardless of what you hear others tell you, what the circumstances that may surround you are. You're solid in the belief of who you are and what you stand for. Those qualities permeate everything we do. So they permeate the community when we're out and about, in the way that we present ourselves, not just physically, and I'm going to use the word energetically, which is what you're talking about when you talk about the look. It's a felt sense, it's your intuition, it's what your gut tells you, it's everything that you pick up around you in your environment that isn't a verbal cue, and not necessarily a visual cue. It's what your brain translates that your body is taking in.
Thank you.
That's the easy version of the essence.
Thank you. How does that affect women in the decision-making process? Who would like to add to that? Chantal, my eyes go to you on that.
I would like to defer to Marilyn or Julie first.
Okay.
So whichever of you ladies would like to chat.
I guess I'm up.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, just my thought on that, you know, when I think of the essence of a woman, like Deb said, the word identity comes to mind. And I think that women uh, who have explored and embraced their true identity, and they do that unashamedly and without apology, are the women who become the movers and the shakers, whether that's in the home, in the community, in leadership, in business, whatever. But I did look up some stats as well in terms of how women show up at home. And I found an article by Inc. that said that working women, spend an average of 130 minutes on chores and 95 minutes per day. So 130 minutes per day on chores and 95 minutes per day caring for others, compared to men who only spend about 82 minutes on chores and 53 minutes caring for others. So we see that there's a lack of balance there, obviously, but women, I think, are naturally perceived as the nurturers in the home. So it's not really surprising. I actually thought the disparity between the time spent on chores and caring for others would be greater than it was. But I think there's still an expectation that women will gravitate more naturally to nurturing and caring. And it's not that men do not nurture and provide care, it's just that they're not expected to.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Thank you. Marilyn, do you have anything to respond to that as far as the essence of women in community?
I'm trying to think about the women's experience, and I feel like there's just a lot of diversity among women. And when I think about what might be my experience, I don't necessarily think it's always the same as when I go to a door in my neighborhood and I'm canvassing and I get to meet some of the women who tell me their stories. And I can see that we don't have the same shared experience and the same lived experience as it pertains to maybe some of our cultural backgrounds, how that impact our role and our power. You know, I'm Ghanaian by heritage, and the Ashanti people in Ghana are a matrilineal people. And so the role of women is a very powerful role in our community. And in fact, our lineage continues through women. And so I am my mother's last born. She had 4 boys and she had to have me. Otherwise, for her, her house dies in some ways. And so the idea of me is very important for her. And therefore, a lot of women in Ashanti communities have a lot of influence and a lot of power and a lot of status, and people will see them as very independent decision makers by virtue of using a matrilineal framework for identifying kind of the role of woman. But then I think about some of the other folks in our communities that don't necessarily come from a matrilineal society, and how that impacts the disproportionate roles that they play in terms of chores. You know, I've heard a phrase called role overload to describe some of the women in our community. So these women are responsible for so many things. They're responsible for their children, their grandparents, their in-laws, their husband's happiness. Like, a lot of it sits on their shoulder. And so as I'm trying to think of kind of the essence of a woman, I think we can all agree that woman is powerful. But I think we have to be mindful that what role and how that power is displayed differs across groups, across time. And we have to understand that just because someone's power doesn't look flagrant and salient in some communities doesn't mean it's also not powerful, right? Wow. So how we think about power, I think also has to shift, that we don't necessarily use kind of a one-dimensional lens in assessing what power looks like, because in our home, power might mean I'm the main decision maker, versus power might mean I might do more of the caretaking role, but the caretaking role of children, for example, is perhaps the most important role ever.
Yes.
And, so I don't know who it was that, I think it's Melanie that mentioned that right now her job is to be a stay-at-home mom. That is probably the most important role she plays in this group. It's more powerful than being a banking leader, I assure you that, because nurturing the next generation, forming the basis of our communities, making sure that we instill the values that we think that we want to live up to are critical to all of our happiness. And so power looks different and influence look different. And so I just,
sorry, Marilyn.
No,
Wow,
sorry.
that is, see, I'm in awe because that's not something that I would normally have thought of, because not being brought up in that kind of a situation that you were. That is wonderful. I could listen to that for the next 4 hours. It's fascinating. Thank you. So, Marlene or Chantal? Chantal.
I was just going to add to this. I love this, that everybody's coming to this framework with women are powerful, we're strong, we don't need to prove that.
Yes.
And I'd like to say that similar to Marilyn, I was brought up to believe that I could be anything I wanted to be, that I should be financially independent from my spouse, that I should be able to take care of myself, my family, regardless of if I had a spouse or not, right? So, and that's the way I was brought up. My father didn't have any sons, so he taught his daughters how to do things like rewiring appliances, because back in the day, you didn't go buy a new vacuum cleaner. If it broke, you fixed it, right?
Yeah.
So I was taught to do those things. And I was also taught that I could have it all, that I could have a career and that I could have children. And things have changed a lot in the last 60 years. So when my mother joined the military and eventually she was pregnant with me, she had to leave the military when she was going to give birth to a live child. They let her stay till she was about 6 months, and then they say, "Oh, you can't be a mom and be in the military." I had 3 children while serving as an officer in the military and retired as a lieutenant colonel, with my youngest turning 6 that year, right? So I had it all, but I didn't do it all on my own. My husband and I talked about it before we had kids, and I said, I am not meant to be a stay-at-home mom. Melanie, you're a brave woman. I knew that my gift didn't lie in staying at home with my kids when they were young. That wasn't something I would do good at. And so I told my husband that before we had kids, and he said, "You know what, Chantal, I wouldn't thrive as a stay-at-home parent either. So let's look for a reputable daycare that can help us raise our kids." And that's what we did. We invested a lot of money into reputable daycares to take care of our kids from the time the eldest was born until I became a veteran in 2012. And so I think that, am I a decision maker in my family? Sure, but we collaborate, right? We talk about the big decisions. Am I a decision maker in my business? Well, this is my business, it's me. But, when I see something that I want changed in my community, then I volunteer to be on a committee or on a board so that I can influence change, or I talk to the people that are in charge. I ran for municipal council in 2014. I did not succeed, but I know the mayor from that experience. And so I before the pandemic, I harassed him in a friendly way every time I saw him at an event and said, "When are the electric vehicle chargers coming downtown?" I was only one voice of many, but we have electric vehicle chargers at our municipal offices now, right? So we can influence change at all levels.
Awesome. Thank you for that point, Chantal. Excellent, excellent. Marlene, any comments on the essence of women in the community?
Sorry, I was just getting unmuted there. There was a lot coming from Maryland. It's the culture. It's the because we're all living in different communities. Like Chantal, I'm the generation in between. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Did she sit at home all day? No. I was the oldest of 6 kids. My mom ran the farm while my dad was at work. She made decisions, life and death decisions on the animals. She made life and death decisions on us kids. Um, and you go back to when there was an appendix attack or when they had whooping cough or anything like that, and living 50 minutes from the nearest hospital was a decision. She was the support for my dad. My dad was in municipal council. He was the reeve or mayor for almost 40 years. So they built the relationship, and she was there for him as a sounding board, as support. Yes, she had influence on getting some things put forward. In my situation, I was married, but I became a single mom. My kids, my daughters, always remember, as the oldest one started to turn 18, was like, okay, you tell your friends that they got to vote. They want a voice in municipality and provincial, then you got to vote. And they will always remember that, because somebody had given me a sticker for the car window, and I had put it up on my car window, and they were so embarrassed to be riding in that car. The seat that I sit in now for my work, I'm one of very few geographic information system specialists in Northern Ontario. And I've been a leader in our working group throughout Northern Ontario for the other conservation authorities. And I'm also the source protection program manager. While there is quite a few women involved in that position, it's still a little bit more on the men's side. And in our office, it's more of a woman-centric office, but we're just a small office. So it's trying to coordinate with everybody and be a leader, but don't be bossy. So to direct.
Be a leader and don't be bossy. Where have we heard that one before?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Marlene. Thank you for your comments on the essence of women in the community. I think that one of the things that we need to do with that, if we can, is the next question on the list is women identify what is needed for a healthy, balanced community. How do we take that essence of women, the strength that all five of you have shared with us in this group today? How do we take that and bring it into creating a balanced community? Let's start with the question, what is a balanced community? Okay, who would like to field that one? No.
I'll take a crack at it.
Yes, I thought you would.
Okay, it was laughing out loud that gave me away. No, okay. The way I look at things is that everybody has a gift, right? And Deb talked about it, about, you know, that essence of you, what's like, right, if you're, sorry, I'm not good with names, so I want to look and see, oh, she's disappeared. Anyway, there, you know, the idea that if you're living your truth, you're living your real life, you're living your gifts, then that's the best place to be, right? And I believe that everybody, whether it's around this table or it's in a community or a school or a company, whatever, everybody has gifts that they can bring to the team. And I believe that when we value everybody for their gifts, especially when people have different gifts so that we can complement each other to achieve our goals, then everybody thrives. So for me, to create a balanced community, you have to have inclusion, you have to have diversity, equality, and it has to be equitable, and you have to have accessibility. It's not just about, you know, DEI, it's about the whole thing, including accessibility which, you know, with 20% at least of our community having some sort of disability, whether you can see it or not, means that we have to make accessible places. So to get a balanced community where all genders, not both, but all genders are welcome, then you have to welcome everybody for the gifts. That's just my thought on what makes a balanced community. I have people who tell me that I'm a little bit, I'm a dreamer, and that's okay, because I figure if I dream and do everything I can to influence that change where that's the society we have, then I'm working on the right path. Will we ever get there? I don't know, but you have to aim high to achieve something that's better than what we have now.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Chantal. Someone else. I'm going to go to Marilyn. You look anxious.
That I look anxious?
I mean,
No.
I mean, ready to talk.
Oh, okay. No, I absolutely agree with Chantal's assessment of what a balanced community is. It totally resonated with me in terms of leveraging Deb's idea that this essence is kind of our gifting that we all have, and therefore balance looks like us kind of operating in those giftings and playing the role that we need to play in this world. And I think, you know, we are, I guess the sum is greater than its parts. And so when we are kind of doing whatever it is that we are called to do, and we are operating in that gifting, it leads to kind of the balance. And I really appreciate Chantal's perspective that to be able to allow people to actually operate in that balance might require some measures and interventions so that we can have the equity that we need to level that playing field, because as much as we recognize that people have gifts, not everybody's able to exercise or optimize or use their gifts, because they might be facing some very serious barriers and challenges that make it difficult for them to do so. So I don't know if I can add anything. I think Chantal said a lot, and I think I totally agree with that. So
so much. Thank you so much, Marilyn. And just another question, how do we make women's, how do we not make, how can we help women's voices be heard and valued in the creating of a healthy, balanced community? Okay.
This was the question. This was the question that came to mind as I was listening to Chantal and Marilyn just now. You know, how do we amplify the voices? And I'm not sure that I have an answer, to be honest. I just recognize that there are so many women who have so much that they could bring to the table, but because of socioeconomic status or education or whatever it might be, right? Their geographical address, you know, they live in the wrong part of town, and so their voices will never be heard. So I think I get the sense that there needs to be a grassroots movement and a shift in attitudes around who has value in the community, right? We tend to, and I feel like North American culture has become, over the last several years, very superficial in the way that we judge what has value and what does not. If you look right, if you live in the right areas, if you have the right education, if you talk in a way that, you know, is consistent with the expectations of whoever the decision makers are, then you have value. But if you're poor, if you're a single parent, if you live in the wrong part of town, if you didn't get to go to university, you know, there are all of these things, these arbitrary factors that don't actually have an impact on whether or not someone has something valuable to offer the community at large. As long as we're willing to embrace those stereotypes and to put up those arbitrary barriers, I'm not sure that women as a whole will be able to bring their full value to the community.
Thank you for that, Julie. Yeah, because people, yeah, you put the tags on people, university or family or neighborhood. It's leaving out a great deal of the population that has so much to offer. So I guess a question to consider perhaps for a future time, or if someone has something to comment. Go ahead, Marilyn.
So I in listening to Julie pose the question, I feel like she does have the answer, as opposed to saying she doesn't know the answer. I think the very answer is to make sure that those of us who understand some of these issues and challenges get to be at the decision-making table, to be able to bring forward the voice of those who are voiceless, for us to be able to bring to light the fact that there are some people missing at this table. There are some people whose opinion and perspective we did not gauge, and we need to go back and make sure that whatever policies or initiatives or programs or ideas that we're putting forward is reflective of the diversity of people and their experience. So as I was listening to Julie, I'm like, you know what to do. Why are you saying you don't know what to do? We do know what to do. We're having conversations. We say that we recognize that, you know, not everybody is in the same boat. And because we already know that, we have to do something about it. You can't know it and do nothing, right? And so I think you are very clear. I think we are all very clear about how we center new voices and make room for other people, and to say that when we get a chance to be at the table, we have to ask the question always, who's missing? Who's missing?
Great question. Who's missing? Yes. Thank you, Julie, Marilyn. That's awesome. Marilyn and Marlene, okay, this is confusing. I have you two together on my board here. Okay. So any comments, Marlene or Deb, to add to this? Deb, go ahead.
I agree that this is, you know, it's very relevant and very timely, but it feels to me like trying to ride a bike with a wonky wheel.
Yes.
So we need to take it even back further, and to circle back to what Marilyn was talking about earlier. You know, we as women, and I'm going to use the word feminine energy because, you know, we have polarity. You know, we have times in our life when we manifest masculine qualities of being action oriented and logical thinkers, but for the most part, we're grounded in our feminine energy, where we're nurturers, where we relish in the being, in the gathering, in the being creative. And that's where we can make balanced decisions. The problem is we live in a society, which Chantal pointed out, is glorifying and promoting us to embrace those masculine energetic qualities of being logical, being successful, gathering material goods, and they're not placing value on those intrinsic things that we have, creativity, nurturing, as I said before. So from my perspective, I think what needs to happen is we need to start educating our daughters on how to have community, how to circle. You know, back in the olden days, you know, women had their moon together. They left the community and gathered in a tent, and they spent 5 days together talking about the problems of the community, talking about their personal issues, and solving them together in an inclusive, cohesive way. We don't do that anymore. We're very siloed. Our communities are very siloed. And again, it goes back to what everybody is addressing, that, you know, people get marginalized because of where they live or because of their education or the color of their skin. And that is not something that women do inherently. It's something that we've been socialized to do. So, you know, I hesitate to say that it's as simple as, you know, doing something like having a red tent, metaphorically. But it really is. And, you know, the indigenous communities of the world still carry on these practices. And again, they are all matriarchal societies where women carry a great deal of power and decision-making ability. But it's because their young girls are trained to hold on to the power that is ours by birth. And that those are the powers of, you know, softness and gentleness. And they're much more flexible and much more not much more valuable. They're different. They're valuable in a different way, but they're far more flexible, I think, than sort of the ones that are ascribed to the masculine, which is always action oriented, and it doesn't allow for flexibility and softness. So again, you know, I think it starts with teaching young girls where their power is, and their power is in being ensconced in their feminine energy instead of trying to be more masculine, because you'll never outman a man, but you can outwoman a man.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's kind of, I like that one, unman a man. Excellent points, Deb. Chantal.
Hi, I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate that that's your experience, but I want to say that I have never had a problem making decisions and thinking logically about things. I'm very much a cisgender heterosexual woman who thinks through things.
Right.
So while I appreciate what you're saying, I would appreciate it if you didn't paint us all with the same brush, because the way my brain works, I need to think things through. And I feel community, even if I'm not sequestering myself with women. I still feel much community with women and men and all other genders, right? So I just have to go on record to say that. Thank you.
Let me apologize, because what I didn't say is that it's feminine energy does not equate being female. It's polarity. We have both. We have masculine and feminine. Men have masculine and feminine. Where you place yourself will determine what is more comfortable for you, but it doesn't make you more or less of what it is to be human. So I apologize if I offended you. That wasn't my intention. I just sometimes get on my soapbox and forget that there are two aspects to everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you both for that, because that's one of the things that as women, like, I can only come from my perspective, but a lot of times one would back down and not say anything and seethe while the other one is stating their point. But this is the way we solve things, is we have discussion on it and we state our viewpoints without condemning the other one for having a different viewpoint. So thank you very much, Chantal and Deb. That was awesome. I appreciate that. Marlene, do you have anything to say on a healthy, balanced community being influenced by the essence of women?
It goes back to the culture again. So if your community is valuing what the women members are contributing to the community, whether it's you're in your own home or whether it's your neighborhood, the schools, and I'm thinking of like the PTAs or whatever they call it now, because I know that's changed. And then in the municipalities themselves, it's a lot of work that the women do in the background that sometimes contribute to a significant change in a community.
Thank you for that. That's often not recognized, I believe, but there is a lot of, this is exciting for me. It's just really exciting. Thank you so much. Okay, so speaking of perspectives, the next question that we have, and feel free to speak specifically on any of the in-home, the workplace, the community, or leadership, but the next one, question number 3, was what women bring a different perspective and mindset to any decision-making process. That's based partly on what Deb has to say, but we all have different experience. So we all have different perspectives. That's something that came to mind yesterday in a group that I'm part of, is how our perspectives, we all come from the perspective that my perspective is the only perspective. which creates a bit of a problem. So how do we get people to look at different perspectives and changing mindsets to the decision-making process so that women's voice is enhanced?
Sorry,
Really?
Charmaine, can I just ask you to repeat the question again?
Okay, how can okay, we're talking about everybody's perspective is different. The question is, women bring a different perspective and mindset to any decision-making process. So my question is how do we enhance women's voice in getting perspectives, different perspectives looked at as it comes to decision-making? Did that help?
So what comes to mind when we think about, you know, the different perspectives in terms of decision making? I always think about just the psychological process of that. And I ascribe to a model called choice theory. And choice theory says that everything that's happening in the real world is just so much for us to handle. It's too much information for us to process. And so we process our experience of the real world through our senses, our values, and our experiences. And because all of us are raised with different sets of values and our life experiences are very different, we're going to perceive the real world in a different way. But this is why we all have different perspectives, right?
Exactly.
And so, you know, like I've worked in a couple of organizations that were very female centric. And I'll be really honest with you, some of the women that I worked with, I didn't get them. I didn't get them, you know, like I didn't understand them. I didn't understand why they were passionate about the things that they were passionate about. I didn't understand the way that they chose to communicate with the team. I didn't understand the push and the quest for power, you know, all of those sorts of things, because my values say, let's work together, let's build a community together so that we all benefit from it. But not everybody has that perspective. So I do think that women bring a different perspective and mindset to decision making, but so do men, because we're all, I mean, all human beings are filtering what's actually happening in the world through their own senses, their own values, and their own experiences. And so what you get are, you get pockets of people who have similar values, and they will look at decision making in one way. And then you have other pockets of people, perhaps with different values, but similar life experience, who want to impact their community. Right? Like if we look at sexual assault survivors as an example, they may have some really strong feelings about the legal process. Because if you think for every, I believe it's for every 100 men that are charged with sexual assault, only one will serve time in jail, only one. And so sexual assault survivors, families of sexual assault survivors, are going to feel very strongly about that. And they might want to influence the decision-making around that. But then you also have other groups of people, perhaps people who have loved ones who have been wrongfully accused. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
like, I don't think it's a simple question that we just bring a different perspective. Everybody brings a different perspective, and people are going to align with others who have perspectives that are similar to theirs. And then they're going to try and influence or shift the narrative. And this is why we have politics, and this is why we have different religions, and, you know, all of these things, because we're trying to align with people who feel like they understand us and they get us, and then they pull together and try to shift the narrative.
Excellent points. Excellent points. So how do we get people in these groups to start sharing or listening to other perspectives and trying to get into that position? Marilyn.
Yeah, can I weigh in? Charmaine said so many things, sorry, Julie said so many things that just started getting me thinking a lot. I think Julie's absolutely right that it's important for us to recognize that women are not a monolithic group. And we should also champion the fact that we are also individuals. And that's why we're not always going to have one woman represent all of our values and really be the voice for all of us. And that's important, not only because we want to say that women are different and we want to diversify voices. It's important because we don't want people to think once they've met their women quota that there's enough. Because that is kind of the drawback of using kind of just the collective perspective. Because that means if I need to hear women's voices and I have Charmaine and I have Julie, it means women are represented. But Charmaine and Julie may not actually represent the diversity of our thoughts and our experiences and our lived experiences just because they are racially different. They may have gone to the same schools and grew up in the same neighborhoods and are probably more similar than dissimilar. And that's actually very important to recognize. And so I think there is a lot of value in in being able to, as part of our own advocacy, because although we are championing kind of the elevation of women in politics and leadership and decision-making, I think it's very important to say that we are all different. And just like we don't put a cap and a quota when we hire men, we shouldn't have a cap and a quota when we hire women, because we bring different ideas and different experiences to the table. So in terms of how we get more of our perspectives to be recognized, I think it's to encourage more women to take up space, encourage young people to put their hands up and to seek positions of leadership and influence, and to let them know that they are capable, rightful decision makers. And that is as feminine as it is male. It is about opportunity. And whoever gets a chance to sit at the table gets a chance to put forward and advocate for their agenda or their community's agenda. And so if you're not there, you don't get to do that. And so I do think it's important for us as women to also communicate the diversity of us. And not just from a racial or socioeconomic, but also from a thought process and lived experience, and people to respect the diversity of thought that we bring to the table. I have also had many experiences with women that I'm like, I'm not sure I would have agreed to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't mean because someone is a woman that they're going to make decisions that are in the collective interest, right? And so I think that is important for us to also, as we're kind of advancing the collective, making sure that we communicate that we are also not a monolithic group and that we should create space for a diversity of voices and diversity of thought.
Thank you so much. Great points coming out here today. Comments on perspective, Marlene, Deb, or Chantal? Marlene.
I think we have to look at not just our little community, but I'm thinking of my daughter right now. For whatever reason, she decided that she was going to work up north. And I'm not talking about Northern Ontario, Sault Ste. Marie. I'm talking about this far from the Arctic Ocean. And she is in Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories. And so it is a whole different, very patriarchal type of culture up there. And she's trying to put down roots with the elders, the women elders and the male elders of the community, so that she can spread some of what I've instilled in her with them. But she's doing it from the perspective that she is the retail manager at the local store. The local store sells gas right down to the eggs and everything else in between, including the 4x4s. So it's a very different thing when you're talking about Northern Ontario, Northwestern Ontario, Attawapiskat, Moose Factory. Those are very isolated, that they don't have a lot of opportunities that the women can have their voices heard. And so when they do have a chance, it's sometimes very muted. And that's unfortunate, because we want to get their perspective as well, to enrich their lives as well as their community's lives.
There's another different perspective because it's a different community. So they come with different mindsets as well. So any other comments on that? And by the way, audience, if you had a question, just put your hand up. You know how you use the reactions to put a hand up. Feel free to put a hand up and I will include you into this if you have questions to ask, okay? So, Deb.
I'm an Indigenous woman. I think I'm experiencing a little what Chantal just did. So one of the issues is that non-Indigenous people who do not live on the res make the assumption that we're not happy with our traditions and that their way is better than our way. I don't come from Attawapiskat. I come from Kanesatake in Quebec. But we have strong voices as women within our own community. We don't necessarily embrace other traditions from outside of our own culture. We tend to be very insular. Amongst ourselves, we are always curious about why non-Indigenous people are not more interested in adopting our ways, which have more to do with Mother Earth, and, using our plant medicine and honoring traditions of the earth. So again, interesting that it's a different perspective, and it comes from a place of caring and wanting to help, but sometimes help isn't warranted in the way that it's being offered.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on what Deb said, because I agree 100% with what she just said. So, yeah, a lot of times when people are coming into a community that they're not familiar with, whether that's an Indigenous community or another community that they're not familiar with, whether it's North Americans going to, South America or something like that. And I'm going to say this with my very pale skin, white people tend to think that we have the solution and we know best. And sometimes we're full of shit and we don't know best. So it's important when you're going to a community and you're offering help, no matter what your background, that you take the time to learn about the community and where they're coming from and what they value, instead of showing up and saying, we have the solution.
Exactly.
Because, if you want to look into history, the world economy screwed up Africa by saying, we have the solution, and devastated most of the continent of Africa by saying, let's do clear cutting and doing this, when that just, it just doesn't work, right? So it's really important when you're going into another community to learn from that community before you collaborate with the community to find solutions that will work for them, not that will work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very strong point. And we all need to look at that whenever we go. I look at that as going into someone else's home. In my mind, I might be rearranging their furniture, but while I'm in their home, I respect their home and what they do in their home. And so it's the same thing. I think that's very good points. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Wow, any questions or anything there? No? Shahina.
Thank you. I just want to again just say something that Chantal mentioned and Deb mentioned. As an African Muslim woman, I just also want to sort of say here that, you know, we have strong voices within our community in the faith of Islam, and there are amazing women role models. It's you know, a civilization, a tradition, a faith that has been going on for 1400 years, and women play a major active part, not just in the local community, but in the family. So I think that, thank you, Chantal, and thank you, Deb, for also saying that, because it is important that we really get to learn the other. The other has a lot to teach us, but sometimes we have to be humble and really be intentful to learn first. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you, Shahina. There's just another perspective. See, there's so many different perspectives coming to the table. The question is how do we, I like the term humble ourselves enough to get a view of what the other perspectives are and find a way to bring them together. I think that maybe women's role in this whole thing is to have our voice there, to recognize the different perspectives and options and make decisions based on those. Thank you all very much for that. I'm going to go back just a little bit. I'm looking at the clock. We still have a lot of time before I ask the last question. And one thing, we've talked a lot about community and even the home. How about leadership? How does the value of decision-making affect women in leadership in community, or, well, in community especially, yes. Let's look at that.
Well, I can talk a little. Yeah, happy to weigh in. I don't know if I'm going to talk about community. Because I don't know. Everything is community, I guess. Yes. But I do think that I think the evidence in terms of business tells us and shows us that people are more likely to hire, mentor, promote people that look like them and people that feel like they have a shared history or kinship in some ways. And that usually means that organizations that are led by men usually continue to be led by men because they're more likely to hire, mentor, promote, and encourage people that look like themselves. So the real value of having women in leadership is that we are also a little bit more likely to hire and mentor and people that look like us. And so when we get a chance to diversify those teams, we also try our best to kind of open the door and bring some people along. And so I do think that we should create the conditions that allow women to be able to pursue positions of leadership if they choose to, right? We also recognize that some people don't want that extra responsibility, that there are other things that they have in their lives, maybe their home life, that is more valuable to them than, you know, climbing up the corporate ladder. And that is also valuable too. When we also come across women that are not interested in pursuing the corporate ladder, we should also value that that choice is also powerful. To be able to choose something different is something we also have to honor and not, you know, demonize or say that we've made all this progress, why don't you want it? Because that may in fact not be what they wanted. There's also value in recognizing that is not what they want. But I do think it's about intentional recruiting and intentional leadership. It's actually all about intentional living and being awake and being present and recognizing that if we do want to see some of the changes that we think we want to see, that it doesn't just happen. This only changes with concerted, thoughtful effort. That means we are thoughtful in running for office. It means we are thoughtful in seeking positions of leadership. We are thoughtful in creating nonprofits and organizations and joining BPW. Like, they just don't happen. and be able to address some of those changes requires being present and very mindful in our living and making choices accordingly. So I really hope that those of us who are in positions of leadership are in fact intentional in our support of other young people. Sometimes we have to go out and make the connections when we see women in work. Maybe they might not put up their hand. Maybe they've also bought into the idea that if I work hard and put my head down, the opportunity will miraculously show up. We know that that's not always true. We know that sometimes leadership means I have to tap you on the shoulder, and therefore we have to be intentional about being able to do so. So that's what I kind of want to offer as it pertains to us in the leadership space and business. And I think that applies to whatever sector or part of life. It's about intentionality.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. Yes, that will apply in all of the different areas. Any other leadership comments? Chantal.
One way that we can be mindful and intentional, I love that word. I underlined it twice in my notes. Thank you, Marilyn. One way we can be mindful and intentional is by mentoring people. I tease my dad and I say, Dad, you'll mentor anybody who stands still long enough to be mentored. And we chuckle about that. And I take after my dad. So, you know, there's in my 2 professional associations, I mentor people. In HRPA, it's all genders. In BPW, it's women, because that's who's joined. But I also find opportunities to mentor people in other organizations that I belong to. And it's putting that hand out, right? One of the women I mentor through HRPA is hard of hearing. She doesn't hear properly. She doesn't use ASL. She uses closed captioning. So when we hold our meetings, we always have the closed captioning running so that she can listen with her hearing aids, but she can also read my words across the bottom of the screen. And yeah, that takes a little bit more time, but I'm being intentional to give her that helping hand so that she can achieve her goals, right? So yeah, that's what I think we can do. We can all offer to be mentors.
Awesome. That's a great point. Julie.
I just want to add to that, because mentorship was the word that resonated with me, and I was jumping in to say that, and then I was like, oh, there she goes, Chantal, she's on it. And I was thinking about, just again, because we are all so unique and we all bring a different perspective to the table. I think what we can all do is to start where we are. And, you know, as a practice owner, I own 2 businesses, and in my private practice, I have made a concerted, intentional effort to mentor young women coming into that mental health space as therapists. And so, you know, I don't like to think that I'm discriminating when I choose to hire women into my practice. Because that's where my passion is. My passion is helping women to start their own businesses and to see that they can be self-sufficient and that they can make a difference in people's lives, and do that as a self-employed woman. So I take students in, I mentor them, I send them on their way, or I hire them into the practice. In my other business, I have recently made the shift to go from being a solopreneur to being a CEO, because as a solopreneur, I can feed my family. As a CEO, I can help other people to feed their families. And I think if we all just sort of look at what's the legacy that we would like to leave, and how can we fulfill that legacy in our own way, right? We can start where we are. And if our influence reaches outwards and into the lives of other people, then perhaps they will pick up that mantle and they'll pay it forward. And then someone else will pick up the mantle and pay it forward. Because, you know, like, as much as it would be nice to think that I could change the world by myself, I know that's not a reality, right? I need other people who are like-minded, who want to pick up that mission and carry it as well. And the only way that I can do that is start speaking into the lives of the people who are in my circle and then grow that circle outward. And so perhaps that is one strategy that we can apply when we're looking at community and leadership, is just, who they say the mark of a good leader is to turn around and see who's following you. Right? So who's following me?
Yeah.
Who's following me? Who's paying attention? Who is taking notes? And am I leaving them the legacy that's actually going to help them to take this the next level?
Wow, that's knowing deliberately that that's what you want. Getting clear is really awesome. Okay, my other.
Can I weigh in a little bit?
Marilyn.
I have a couple two things for Julie.
Okay.
Number one, Julie, you can change the world, even as one person. I think the minute you think you can't, you can't. And it's not about setting out to change it, but I think being intentional around whatever it is that you can do, whatever it is kind of within your capacity, and to think about how you can amplify it by actually starting, can influence the masses. And it's not necessarily just the one by one. We have a lot of resources and tools at our disposal that the many people from history did not have, to be able to amplify their voices. So the things you can do at scale, that people that we celebrate in Women's History Month and Black History Month and all those history months did not have, we have a lot more opportunity to have broader impact globally. And so you can definitely change the world, because there are many people that we celebrate and people that I'm sure you respect that did change the world just by virtue of just being and doing whatever it is that they could do in their local arena. The second thing is, I don't think that the mark of a good leader is to see who's following you. I think it's not about more followers. I think the mark of a good leader is how many leaders you create. And that it should be what we can actually strive to. It's not about how many people we have following us. It is about how many other people we've actually empowered to do great things and encourage them to be leaders. And so I just wanted to leave that, because I was like, oh, let me just say something. But
no, I like that because I've always loved the quote, because I realize that there are so many layers to it, and you've just unpacked all the layers with those few sentences. So thank you for that. Yeah, that really clarifies the meaning behind the quote. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb.
So what I find interesting to observe is that everybody who's speaking is more about the act of service than the material gain. And I think that's the key. When we act in our higher selves and our highest self-interest, that's when we do what Marilyn is talking about. We create desire and in other people to emulate what they see, which is done in integrity, and solely for the purpose of creating community, creating a balanced community, creating a better world, for using a cliche phrase. But that's what I see as being most important, is acting through service as opposed to, accolades or material gain.
That's a very good observation. That is really awesome. Any other comments on leadership and women? Our voices need to be heard. I'm just in awe of the things you women are doing. It's awesome. Thank you so much. I could learn so much from each of you. So next question then. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. The next question, the last question that I really have is, in light of the answers to the first three questions, how have you perceived women in a stronger light? I just want to say that I see each of you as very strong women. Let me back up the bus a minute because I wanted to ask Marlene. Marlene, you've been a strong woman leader for over 30 years in DPW and everything else. What are your comments on the voice of women in leadership? I really would like to hear more about that.
Well, I gained a lot of confidence through BPW, through doing presentations, through taking on the role of, at the time, district director. So it allowed me to gain the skills of meeting planning, budgeting, but I also had to talk to people. And that was one of the big things, was that the organization had the confidence in me to do the job that I needed to do. And then, of course, I stepped into a couple of different roles within our local club, and I've been on a couple of different positions at the Ontario level. And again, it's talking with people. I learned how to work a room, to mingle, network, pull out information that I could use at a different time, to benefit the local club or the provincial club. But it didn't stop there, because the skills that I developed through working with BPW also give me the confidence to go back to school. So at 40 years old, I went back to school to get my GIS certificate, to get my accounting diploma. And so that's when I started my second career, and that's the one that I'm in now. So that allowed me the confidence to step up and do that. It allowed me the confidence to step into an interview and say, yes, I'm worth that. When I graduated from the GIS program, I had 3 job offers that were all basically the same, but they were significant job offers that I used the one to parlay my skills into the one that I'm in now currently. So it's the leadership part of it is, I've always listened to advice, but I also asked for advice. I sat down with women leaders in our community, and that came from me learning how to talk with people and to get to know them by a few simple questions and developing that relationship with them. So it's a lot, but it's like Marilyn had said, it's not just being the leader, it's being the leader and encouraging others to be leaders as well.
That's pretty awesome. Go ahead, Marilyn.
I also wanted to add, because I know that we're going to be probably switching gears to the last question, but I'm just reflecting on the fact that it was Equal Pay Day not too long ago. And one of the things that I think women leaders, and when we get a chance to be at the decision-making table, is to bring to light the inequities in pay for women professions, or professions in which that are predominantly held by women, whether it's in childcare or education or nursing or midwifery or whatever it is, being able to bring forward the plight and champion and advocate for pay equity. We know that when women are economically stable and economically independent. They have more choices. They're not likely to have to stay in abusive relationships. They are more likely to take care of their children. So I think, you know, talking about economic empowerment and women go hand in hand in terms of the advancement of women and the importance of addressing women in leadership. And so when we get there at the table, sometimes we want women in leadership. I think we all agree, but we also say we want women in like STEM and science, technology, because usually that's where the jobs of the future are, but it's also where the high paying jobs are. But I think it's also important for women, and in light with some of the comments Deb made at the beginning of the conversation, that there are some professions that naturally will always have more women just by virtue of who we are, being nurturers. So you are always going to have more women probably in nursing than other fields, or teaching than other fields, and right now, or childcare and child rearing than other fields. And it's not to say that we understand, and you know, to be able to give women what they want, we should just encourage them to do science, technology, and math. We also have to say we have to value women's work. Yes. And if that is the work that women choose to do, we should not devalue it and say, well, just because you chose to be a teacher, then, you know, it is what it is. That is what the market pays. I think we have to be very intentional that some of those market forces are not working in our favor, and that we're the ones that are disproportionately hurt by that. And we also see feminization of poverty. And so we also have to use our voices, those of us who are in positions of influence, and have a chance to amplify the voices of those who were not at the table, to be able to bring forward those issues. Okay, so we've seen through the pandemic, we've seen those who lost their jobs, they are in service jobs, mostly women. Like, that's important for us to recognize. And just because we are not necessarily in those positions does not mean we don't bring forward the issues of those that we get a chance to represent. That is the whole point of being a leader, is to say that there are other people that I'm representing. I'm not here just for myself. I come with community. And so I just wanted to bring that here, because I feel like we didn't get a chance to touch on that at all. And I, I'm running with the Ontario Liberals. We recently just announced that we've reached gender parity in our candidates. And I just wanted to bring that forward, that issues around pay equity, gender equity, those come by intentional decision making. And when we women know some of the issues that face us disproportionately and get a chance to do something about it, we have to speak out about it. Okay, especially when it comes to career fields that women naturally gravitate towards. I think that doesn't always get the light and attention that it deserves. But I hope that we can all do our part to encourage the decision makers and the powers that be to start paying people who work in healthcare and childcare and nursing a lot more money for doing that work, because that is hard work. I'm a mom of 2 young boys, ages 1 and 3, and I thank God for my daycare workers because I couldn't do it all day. And someone has to pay these people a lot more money. And I'm going to make sure that I advocate for that, because we know how hard child rearing is, and we need to value that a lot more.
I especially like what you just said, Marilyn, about valuing people at whatever they choose to do, and not devaluing the work that they do. Like, teachers are so important. Healthcare providers are so important. Why are we paying them less than other things? Because what did we learn through this pandemic about their value, right? That's an excellent point. And that clues right in with leadership. If we're going to be women leaders, we need to value all levels, right? And see what we can do to bring those ones that have been traditionally devalued up to par. Thank you so much. That was really awesome. Okay, let's get into our last question now. Again, are we perceiving women in a stronger light after the answers to the first 3 questions? Personally, I'm going to say I do. I am in awe of what you women have accomplished and what other women can accomplish with role models, mentors, and people like you at the helm. Thank you so much. So what do you think? In light of the answers to the first 3 questions, have you perceived women in a stronger light? And I'm going to put that out to the audience as well. Okay. Chantal?
I'm always happy to jump in. I like to let other people have a turn, but I'm happy to jump in. And I'll say what I said to Nancy when she invited me to participate in this. I said, you're not going to change my mind. I know women are strong. So as long as you're okay with me showing up, believing women are strong and talking about that, and you not being able to change my mind, then we're good and I'll be here. So yes, you have not changed my mind. Women are still strong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chantal. I really believe we need more women to believe that women are strong and to accept that gift and that responsibility. Women have traditionally been playing weak for many, many decades, years, centuries. But without the strength of women, I don't think the human race would have got this far. That's my personal opinion. And Deb, what do you have to say?
That's my segue. You know, I came from a very difficult background, and I was always a leader, but I hid my light. And when I started my training, one of my teachers told me, it's I guess like a parable, but it's a truism. And she said to me, you know, consider a time in history when everything was magical. We had no concept of science or biology or chemistry. Now imagine there's a group of people on the earth, and one of them happens to be a woman. And one day this other human drops out of her. And nobody knows how it got there or why it came out of her and not one of the men or one of the other women. She must be powerful because none of the men can do it. Only a woman can. And that is where the inception of feminine divinity came from. Divine feminine. We are the only ones who can produce human life. We only need one man. They need many women. So we have always been very powerful. And as you know, science progressed and we began to have an understanding of how these things really happened, it became very threatening to men. Well, it was threatening to them in the beginning, but eventually, you know, they knew they needed to rein us in because our power was very frightening and intimidating to them. And so, yes, we have always been powerful. We've sometimes through history had to hide it for our own survival, but we've always been powerful, and we're seeing it cycle back now.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a really good point. I think we're getting it back. Okay. Julie, you're next on my list.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure that I agree that women have been playing, or, you know, that we have accepted the perception of weakness. I think that is something that has been very systematically promoted in particularly Western society, because why? Maybe it, you know, I agree with Deb to that extent that, you know, we have a power that men can't replicate, right? Like I tell my husband's in the other room, so I don't want to hear me, but I mean, I tell him all the time, like, you pass a watermelon through your penis and then talk to me about how much stuff hurts, okay? Because like I gave birth to 3 watermelon-sized humans, all right, and you don't know how to do that. So, you know, the joking aside, I do believe that for whatever reason, and I don't understand the mind of men, but for whatever reason, we have always been portrayed, our softness, our empathy, our nurturing has always been written into the narrative as signs of weakness. You know, before women could vote, the narrative was that women were too emotional and that we wouldn't make good leaders because we were highly histrionic and whatever. But, you know, every single war has been started by men, right? Who clearly don't know how to regulate their emotions. And it's not that they're not emotional, they just don't know what to do with them, you know? And so I think women have a strength that is different and a power that is different. And I would love to see a time when feminine power is respected. I don't necessarily need it to be revered, but to be respected enough that we don't have to make our own tables so that we can have a seat, that we would be welcomed and invited, and you know, there would be excitement that there are women at the table because we bring that perspective and that unique strength and power to the discussion. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you very much, very much. Marlene.
It's just the broad spectrum of women that have been brought together on this panel, and listening to them, and just knowing that there's another generation coming up. Like I'm at an age where I'm contemplating retiring in a couple of years, and it's knowing that Julie and Marilyn and Shahina and Sherry and trying to think of whoever else, Lori and Melanie, they're all coming up as the next generation that are going to be those strong voices, that are going to be those voices that are going to bring others from the next generation up to get them to be into leadership roles as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I agree. And Marilyn, a last voice on the perceived women? The perceived, well, in light of the answers to the first three questions, have you perceived women in a stronger light?
Like Chantal, I've always known women to be powerful. I come from a long line of powerful women, even if it didn't seem like they had a ton of agency always. I've learned that there's power in silence. I've learned that there is power in ignoring people, acting like you didn't hear what you heard. It keeps the peace in your home sometimes. I know that there is, I just always known that the power really lies in women in communities. There's an African, saying that says that, if you educate a man, you educate an individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate a nation, because we are natural knowledge givers and knowledge translators. And so there's so much about why we invest in girls and young women, because we lift up communities. And I've always known that to be true. And so I've always been intentional in mentoring, always in trying to let women know that they're very competent and very capable, and that there is nothing out there that they cannot learn if they want to learn. And we just have to continue as older women to bring, I don't know what older means anymore, but as not young youth, to be able to inspire and pour into our youth, and also just continue that knowledge transfer and translation that generations are in you. And not necessarily if you actually give birth yourself, but we mother other people, whether or not they're our children or not. And so I think that's important to recognize and validate and encourage that women continue to do that knowledge translation, to share their resources, their information with their friends, their colleagues, their siblings, their extended family, because that is how community develops. Once we become wise and informed, we also pass on that knowledge and share that information. So I've always known women to be powerful, and I've always known that unfortunately, not everybody gets a chance to display their power. And so the work for us is to be able to help create the conditions that get people to realize that full potential. That is our work. That is our collective work. And I know that we do that through being intentional and thoughtful and asking questions and thinking about our sisters and being our sisters' keepers.
Thank you so much. Thank you, each and every one of you, so much for this, for being truly strong women and for sharing with us your strength, because when we see it in other women, then we can give ourselves permission to have it as well. Okay. Just before we end, Julie, go ahead.
I just feel like I need to add one more thing, if that's okay. And I love the conversation sort of centering around strong women, but I feel it's important for us to remember that just because we're strong doesn't mean that we're not also vulnerable. I think we need to remember that there's a balance there, and that you know, like sometimes when we magnify the strength of women, we don't give them space to have pain and to be hurting and to, you know, to feel all the things, right? Like, so as we move on from this discussion and thinking about the strength that is inherent in every woman, I think it's important also to acknowledge the vulnerability that is in every woman as well, and that we are immensely powerful and capable of doing amazing things, but we also need to rest.
Thank you for that,
we also
Julie.
need a break.
Thank you so much for that. That is one thing that I have been stressing for the past couple of months in women's self-care and getting your mojo back. There is strength on the other side of vulnerability, but we need to allow ourselves to care enough about ourselves to give ourselves permission to rest, to hurt, to grieve, all of those things that a lot of women, when they get on the strong path, they forget that if they don't take care of themselves, they're not setting a good example for the others. And we need to take care of ourselves to set that example for our daughters. Thank you guys so much. I want to ask if anybody in the audience has something to say. Anne.
I've been biting my tongue all night, as I bet you know. I am totally blown away by the whole bunch of you. I know a lot of you, but there's things I learned tonight that I didn't know before. I just thank you. Thank you so much for being there for all of us. You are the type of people we need. And I don't think there's anyone, I know most of you, and I think there's nobody who's out there blowing their own horn. I really believe that. And what you're doing is making us all a community. And that is just wonderful. And Marilyn, you're amazing. Where are you running?
I'm running in Brampton South.
Oh, darn. I mean, I'm going to say, I hope you get elected. Thank you. Sure, because I think you would be a valuable asset. But I was hoping you'd say somewhere in St. Catharines.
I don't remember our St. Catharines young woman, but I'm sure she's also, I think it's a woman in St. Catharines that's running for the Ontario Liberals. But
I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
They've just appointed somebody. I thought it was a young man, which is fine. He's good too. But,
well, thank you so much, Anne.
Yes,
you.
well, thank you. And thank you, Charmaine, you did a yeoman's duty tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? If I may be bold, Lori, do you have any comments for us tonight?
Thank you, Charmaine. We always talk about having more women in politics and in leadership. I think it's really important that we have the right women, the experienced women. I don't want to just see parity with men just to have a woman in place. And I don't want to see men just to have a man in place either. It's really important that we have the right people in the jobs. And if the people that are sitting around the table all look like you, then that's wrong, no matter what sector, what religion, what race, what color. If everybody looks like you, it's not the right table. We need to have our table divided up into different ethnic, different race, different ages, different genders. It has to be a diverse table. So that's important. And the last thing I want to leave with is, if with politics, our provincial and our municipal election coming up, we want to see more women in politics. If that's not you to run, you can support other women. And it doesn't have to be through, it could be through financial donations, it could be putting up a sign, it could be going out campaigning, it could be helping with a website, whatever it is, that's how you can support other women. And that's what we have to do as women. Find the women that you want to support that have like-minded ideas and vision, and support them that way. Thank you so much for including me in this tonight. It was really wonderful to listen to all of you. And I don't see a new light on women, because I know we're all strong. What I do see is brand new facets and different perspectives from every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight, Lori. Any other comments or takeaways from our observers? I'm going to start singing the Jeopardy song. I understand. It's 5 to 9. I am just so proud to be part of this organization and to be part of this group. So I'm going to give it back to Nancy, and I'm going to let Nancy close us up. Thank you all so much.
There, had to unmute. What an amazing, intriguing, inspiring evening this has been. Our first roundtable, I was just blown away, and I'd hoped that this one, that the roundtable number 2, would equal this achievement, but it's even better. It's even better. We're really getting on a roll. I'm going to do a roundtable number 3. Okay. If any of you wish to participate, please let me know. I pick my panelists very, very carefully. I picked them. I choose them on their strength, their versatility, and I didn't goof up at all. I'm thrilled with all of you ladies that you exceeded my expectations, and I thank you so much. I'd like to thank our observers as well, who are quiet, but I'm going to bug them anyway. Sharon Doran, what do you think of this evening?
Well, I'll use the term you used, that it exceeded my expectations. So thank you. It was sort of a last minute decision that my evening opened up and I had the time, and I'm so glad that I did. I learned a lot. Feel like I've met some wonderful new women, and I think there's a lot of hope for lots of areas of society, and including BPW and including government at all levels. And just, yeah, it's been a wonderful, informative evening, and I thank you again for including me.
Thank you. Melanie, what do you think? You're from People Platform, are you not?
Yes, sort of. I really appreciate the invitation to witness this tonight and to hear all of you speak. It was absolutely fantastic. I was thinking a lot about your question about seeing women in a brighter light or a new light. And I also have always thought women are very strong, and I've been looking for ways to support women around me and what I can do in the community to support women. But I will say, listening to all of you speak tonight, I actually see myself more clearly in what you were saying. So not necessarily all women, but I see myself. And I really appreciate that. I like this as a learning opportunity for me.
Good, thank you very much. Kathy, what did you think of this evening?
That was very interesting. I have learned a lot about the organization. I must say, all of you have been very fascinating to listen to. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Who have we not heard from yet? Shahina, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Nancy. And thank you, panelists. It was a really an amazing evening. Lots and lots of food for thought. You know, as you were speaking, I was jotting things down and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have a comment. I want to say something. And then somebody else spoke. And yeah, there's just a lot that I'm taking away. So thank you so much. It was a really great evening. I think just one piece that I'm taking is, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. And I think that, you know, just an 8 hours, a 12-hour day isn't enough. There's a lot to do in order to improve the life and, you know, just for women. And I think it's also just looking at the dignity, at the way in which we look at women. You know, women's dignity is important. And I think for me, that's my takeaway, that although I'm working every day with women, I really need to still amp up my game a little bit more. Although there is more, I need to do more. And that's what I'm taking away, that there's energy, fuel, and, you know, power, that there's a lot to be done. And I think it's about paying it forward. Women will help other women. So thank you, panelists, and thank you, Niagara. It's a great session today. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Sherry. I don't see her face, but I see Sherry's name here. Sherry, do you have anything to say about what you saw? I know you had to come in late.
Sherry had to sign off, Nancy. She had to put her little guy to bed.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm sorry. We're talking about Sherry Darlene.
Oh yeah, Sherry Darlene. Is she?
Yeah, she's here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
yeah,
can.
we can hear you.
Oh, okay. The reason why you can't see me is because, number one, I didn't know anything about this. It just popped up in my news feed and I thought, how don't I know anything about this? So I clicked on. I'm in my pajamas with my hair tied up, so the camera will not come on. But I just want to congratulate you on how fantastic this is. I think what I got from just listening to what I caught the tail end is there's this incredible sense of community amongst all of you on the panel, and I'm in love with the diversity that comes from race to, you know, culturally to even age. And I'm a firm believer in, I always say a child cannot be what a child cannot see, but I don't think it's just children that need to see community come together, women of color in politics, just all of that. This is all very positive. I'm very, very happy to see this, and I look forward to learning more about BPW and these roundtable sessions. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I would encourage all of you ladies, spread the word. Let them know about this roundtable. If you're impressed, we're going to impress more people. And it'll be another month before we do a roundtable again, because I can only do so much in a month. And I'm just so thrilled and so grateful that you all took this seriously and participated. And yeah, please spread the word. Tell them next time I hope to see double the squares on the page. And I guess I'll have to close the meeting. I thank you all so much for participating. Again, you've exceeded my expectations, all of you. And I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be a woman.
Thank you, Nancy, for putting this together.
Oh, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that. So thank you all. You're welcome to stay and chat or socialize a bit if you wish. Jocelyne's going to stop the recording. And is there any last minute questions? I put my email in the chat if you have anything you want to say later or you think of it later and go, you know, because I do that a lot. I do that a lot. So feel free to contact me anytime. And roundtable number 3 will be announced in a few weeks. I'll know when I'm able to do it again. And if you want to participate again as a panelist, you are more than welcome. And if you wish to be a participant, yes, please, you are welcome. So thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
I will stop the
Jocelyne.
recording now. Thank you very much.